Stars of track and field you are. Stars of track and field you are. Stars of track and field are beautiful.
And welcome to another edition of Let'sRun.com's Track Talk. This is your host, Robert Johnson. Special edition this week. The Nike Prefontaine Classic is, of course, Friday and Saturday, and that's mainly what we're going to talk about. Joining us is Let'sRun.com ace staff writer Jonathan Gault, who will be on the plane momentarily. I guess it's actually tomorrow morning to Eugene. John, welcome to the program.
Good to be here, Robert.
Folks, we've heard the criticism from the fans. I put up a crowdsourced, does anyone want to cover the meet for us, Prefontaine? The fans have demanded that John Gault be sent to Eugene, so I've won $1,000, folks. John, enjoy your trip. Weldon Johnson, my co-founder, is also on the line. Weldon, welcome to the show.
Good to be here. I'm a bit jealous of John. The final pre-classic at Hayward Field. Historic
yes,
Hayward
the final
Field.
pre-classic at Hayward Field. And folks, we're going to let you in on a little inside information. There's a lot of drama going on as to what's going to happen to Hayward. Are they going to tear down the East Grandstand? You know, the old timers, some of the traditionalists want to keep it. Nike wants to build something new with Phil Knight's money, obviously. And folks, just to make it simpler for someone, after it's all over, Jonathan is going to get a gas tank and just torch the East Grandstand. We won't have any drama. John, are you ready? Are you up for the challenge?
Well, where are they going to hold NCAAs then?
Oh, good point. Well, maybe we'll do it. I'll be out there at NCAAs with you, so I will take the task on. We won't have to have debates and these dumb lawsuits. We don't want USATF moving the meet. The world's out, you know. So, anyways, that's a joke. Not a very good one, but one whatsoever. Anyways, let's get right to the action. I mean, John, I feel like I know a lot about Prefontaine's Friday night action because you've written a great preview. I'm still waiting for Saturday's preview to come up so I can feel a little bit like, right now I feel like the emperor with no clothes, folks. I'm being exposed live on the radio without John's extensive previews. I don't know so much, but I'll do my best to fake it. But so much going on. I mean, the men's 800 and 2 mile on Friday are worth the price of admission alone. And
well, the price of admission on Fridays.
I know you can see those events for free. So, I mean, but I'm saying if those are the only two events on Saturday, it would be well worth it. Those are free of charge on Friday night. And then Saturday, you have the full Diamond League meeting and more with the Bowerman Mile, which isn't actually a Diamond League event. So it's just going to be fantastic. But John, what event are you most excited for? Is it one of the Friday night events? What has got you most excited for the Prefontaine Classic?
Well, I think I was going to say the 2 mile on Friday until about an hour ago when it came out that Christian Coleman's actually doubling. He's doing the 100 and the 200. And when I heard that, I just got really, really excited because I was already excited to see him. He hasn't run an individual race outdoors this season. And he was supposed to debut in the 100 against Justin Gatlin. So I was pretty pumped for that to see how fast Coleman could go because I know, you know, if you listen to sprint experts, the straightaway at Hayward Field is, you know, among the fastest in the world. But then it was just released. I get an email in my inbox saying Christian Coleman running the 200 at Pre-Classic. And I'm like, does that mean he's pulled out of the 100? No, he is trying to do the double, folks. So 86 minutes in between the events. And then who is he getting to face in the 200 meters? Noah Lyles, who might just be the best 200 meter runner in the world right now. So I think it's not one event, but it's just that double men's sprint action is what I'm really excited to see. Can Coleman win both of them? How fast will Lyles go? I'm really excited to see what's going to happen there on Saturday.
So, folks, don't accuse us of just being distance nerds. We love the entire sport of track and field. Let'sSprint.com will be launching soon. I am serious. I have thought about launching some other homepages. Everyone needs their 15 seconds of fame. That's what Facebook is. So we should have a Let's Sprint, a Let's Throw. Some of those domains are taken, though, unfortunately. But, yeah, you know, the sprinting is really, you know, obviously at a meet like Pre is going to be fantastic. But one of the things that, you know, I was thinking about, you know, sprint wise and sort of Coleman was so good last year. Lyles seems to be just amazing as well. But if you could take any sprinter for the next 10 years, like Usain Bolt is gone. I mean, that's the big theme for 2018. There's no more Bolt. I mean, he did lose last year, but track and field was all about Usain Bolt. And it just came out on ESPN this week. There's no track and field athlete ranked in the top 100 most recognizable athletes in the world with Bolt's departure. So the real question in 2018 is who's going to sort of take over for Bolt. So, for the next decade. So if you could be any sprinter for the next 10 years, who would you be? Would you be Noah Lyles, Christian Coleman, Andre DeGrasse, Trayvon Bromell? Which of those people, Weldon, do you think is going to be the face of sprinting moving forward?
Noah Lyles. I mean, that's who I'd be. I don't know. I think he's got a little bit. I don't know if he's going to be the face of sprinting because he's not a 100-meter man. But I'm super impressed. But with all those guys, right? I mean, a couple years ago, it was DeGrasse. It's crazy how good they are. But for me, there's been no. Can he also run the 100, or is he just a pure 200 man? And I think if you're just a pure 200 man, I don't know. That doesn't really resonate. I think the 400 is more prominent even than the 200. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
I would say Christian Coleman personally. And I think Lyles is a huge talent. But I think, as you said, his best event is the 200. He wants to run the 100. I think he told me last week he wants to run it at USA's this year. His coach wants him to run the 200. But I think Coleman, he's run 9.82 in the 100. He's already got a silver medal at Worlds in the 100. I think he has, and the other thing is he's been healthy. And who knows? 2 years from now, he might be in the same situation as Bromell, because Bromell ran 9.84 in 2015. We all thought, look at this guy. He's going to be the next big thing. Same with DeGrasse. Both of those guys have battled injuries. Bromell, we have yet to see him really return to his form that he showed, early in 2016. We haven't really seen DeGrasse get back to where he was last year at the Olympics. Give him some time, they might return to that level. But I think we see with sprinters all the time. I mean, look at Johan Blake. Johan Blake started out with one of the most promising starts to a career of anyone in the history of track and field. But then he, had some hamstring issues, and he really hasn't been the same guy since. So it's really hard to tell if these guys come down with a major injury. It's just your body, it goes through so much in running that high speed. It's hard to tell if they'll ever get back to their best. But right now, Coleman's start is amazing. I think he's run 92 in the 100. Give me Coleman for the next 10 years.
So he's your favorite for 2020 gold, John, in the 100 meters?
Yeah, I would say that right now, yes.
When I was thinking about the question, I was kind of thinking who's the favorite for 2020 gold, and I think you've got to go. I'm with John. You've got to go with Coleman because he's healthy. I mean, DeGrasse isn't healthy. Bromell didn't even run. I think he ran one race last year, like 10. So, as John says, they could be like Johan Blake and never really seen from again. Coleman was so good last year that there's nothing really to like. But the thing that I just love about Lyles is, could he be like Usain Bolt? I mean, Bolt started off as a 200, 400 guy and then ended up being a 100, 200 guy. And then actually his last year ended up just running the 100. Now, people thought he couldn't run the 100 because he was so tall. Now, Lyles isn't nearly that tall, but, Lyles, he's run 986 this year, but with a 4.1 tailwind. He ran a 10.14 in 2015 as a 17-year-old. So, and that was a 2.0 win, so it's a pretty big win. But, could he be someone that ultimately, maybe the 200 is his best event, but the 100, he's pretty darn good at it as well. So, really exciting stuff there. But, when you look at Coleman, one thing that really struck me was, Bromell was so good. And I think it was 2014, John? 2015, right? When Bromell was so good.
2015, he medaled. He was good. He was the NCAA champ in 2014 too, but DeGrasse then came on and beat him the next year.
Yeah. But those guys were Bromell and Coleman are the same age. They're both 22 right now. But, if you go back a few years ago, I think when they were freshmen, Coleman didn't even make the finals at NCAA. He did run 10.18, but Bromell ran 9.84 that year and ended up going pro. And now here we are a few years later, and Bromell's injured and Coleman is, really doing quite well. So the sprint action should be, fantastic. And, there's just, obviously at a Diamond League meet, the only U.S. Diamond League meet now, it's going to be loaded, in so many different events. The non-sprinting events, we got the 400 hurdles women, but without Sydney McLaughlin, hey, I'm not really that excited about that. We have 100 women. 110 hurdles men, 400 women. These are just the running events, and the 200 men. And then you got a ton of field events, obviously. So those are the the non-distance events. And then distance-wise, we've got a B800 women on Friday night, a B800, B1500 women, and then the 802 mile, which we'll get into in great detail. And then the Diamond League meets on Saturday. Events on Saturday are the 800 women, steeplechase men, 1500 women, 5,000 women, and the pre-classic always ends with the Bowerman Mile. It's actually not a Diamond League event, but it is absolutely. So, John, besides the sprinting events, what distance event most excites you, and what should we talk about first?
So yeah, I would say the 2 mile. As I hinted earlier, I think I'm just really intrigued to see how Edward Cheserek does. I think a lot of these events we sort of know, who the top guys are, and we don't know exactly what will happen. But this one, Cheserek, we've seen him run against a field like we've never seen him run against a field this good. Indoors in Boston, he faced Gebrewet and Gebre Meskel and Cyrus Ruto, some pretty good runners. And he beat them. That was part of his epic 2-day double. He ran a 3:49 indoor mile, number 2 all time. And then he came back the next day and ran, I think 7:37 to 7:38, something pretty quick in the 3K in Boston. But this is a more difficult field than that. And it's got guys like Paul Chelimo. It's got Salmon Barrega, who was, 5th at Worlds last year. He's really good. It's a loaded field. And it's the toughest field he's ever faced. And I've always thought, even when he was a freshman at Oregon, I thought, he had the closing speed to one day medal on the world stage. But, we haven't seen him take on, he's been able to dust the best collegians the last few years, but we haven't seen him take on, these world-class fields. And this is his first test. It's on his de facto home track where he dominated for Oregon for years. I just really can't wait to see how he matches up against Chelimo and all those guys.
Now, this is his outdoor opener, John. One thing that, has me a little bit nervous is, it's my understanding he was on the start list last week for the Oxy meet and didn't race. What was he going to run at Oxy? And do we have any idea if he's in shape?
I don't know what he was going to run at Oxy. And I don't know what kind of fitness he's at right now. He hasn't raced since that indoor weekend in Boston, but I guess that's another reason why I'm curious. If he's not at 100%, or if he's coming off a break or whatever, who knows? It could be any one of these guys who beats him. But if he's at that same level of fitness, I think he's a serious contender to win the race.
Well, then who do you like in that race?
It's kind of weird because it's early in the season, right? So, like as you said, he hasn't raced this year outdoors. You don't know where people are at. I think I'm just more excited to see the matchup, right? Chelimo is going to be in there. Edris. I would like to see someone who's raced, already this year. I don't see why you guys aren't playing up Chelimo a little bit more, just because he's already raced this year.
No, I think Chelimo will do great. He almost won in Shanghai. I think he could well have won World Indoors in the 3K. But yeah, I was sort of playing up Cheserek because I think it's interesting. It's his first outdoor race as a pro. We don't really know what he can do against this kind of field. We know Paul Chelimo is one of the best 3K. I guess this is a 2 miler. He's one of the best 2 milers in the world. So I'm not going to be surprised if he wins. I guess I wouldn't be super surprised if Cheserek wins, but it's something we haven't really seen him at that level yet, whereas we have for Chelimo.
Yeah. Now the 2 mile distance, John, it seems to me that would definitely benefit Cheserek. He ran a 350 mile indoors. The Kenyans are known for their miling, prowess. Whereas if you look at the top Ethiopians, the world champion Mukhtar Edris is in there. He didn't look good in Shanghai, but the Ethiopians also aren't known at all for their mile ability. So 2 miles is much closer to a mile than it is a 10K. So I think that would certainly help a Cheserek, But one of the things that I added to the preview that we have up on Let'sRun.com is I think that there's a lot of people that just sort of assume, and I guess you're not this way, John, because you're saying you want to see how he just stacks up a field. But I think there's a lot of people that just sort of assume, like, oh, of course, Cheserek dominated in college. Now he's going to dominate in the pros. he's going to be the next Bernard Lagat, sort of Kenyan-turned American. If you're not familiar, Cheserek's trying to get his U.S. citizenship. But, one thing that I put in the preview was, why are we all assuming that Cheserek's going to be this dominant world figure? I mean, look at Solomon Barega, the Ethiopian. He's, 4 years younger than Cheserek, or 6?
Who really knows, Robert? It's with both of their birthdays, we don't really know.
Yeah, but official age is what?
Official age, I believe he's 18, and Cheserek is.
Yeah, so 6 years younger. And his PRs. I mean, this guy Barega, who got the silver indoors, he's 13 days short of 6 years younger than Cheserek officially. Now, there's doubts, as John said, about both their birth dates, but he's run 12:55 in his first year on the circuit. He's also got a better 3,000 meter PR, 7:36 versus 7:38. Now, I think if they're both, healthy for 2 mile, particularly at pre-classic, I would probably give the edge to Cheserek. But it's just interesting to me that, as good as Cheserek was, it's weird because Cheserek at the end of college, he didn't have a great senior year. Had a couple defeats in cross country and got injured outdoors and didn't really end with a bang. But then, indoors this year, he just sort of erased, I think, most people's doubts. Like, wow, 350 mile, he is back better than ever. But, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of interesting to like who is better as a pro than they are in the collegiate and who isn't. I mean, I think if we were having this conversation 5 years ago, people would have been talking about Lowy Lalang. I mean, Lowy Lalang was almost as good as Cheserek. In some ways, he was better than Cheserek in college. I think Cheserek won 15 individual titles. I think Lowy won 9. So that's obviously less. But look at their PRs. I mean, Lowy ran 3:33 and 13:01 in college the year before he graduated. That was the summer before his senior year. And Cheserek's only run 13:18. Now he's running 350 mile, which is probably pretty close actually to 3:33. So, and Lowy's only actually 2 years older than Cheserek now. So it's just something to think about. I don't know. Like, John, this is a future story idea I have for you. I've always wanted to know what happened to Robert Cheserek. Robert Cheserek is Bernard Lagat's brother. He was incredible in college at Arizona. He beat Dathan Ritzenheim. He fell down and still beat Dathan Ritzenheim for an NCAA title one time in Austin. And then really didn't do much as a pro. He's still sort of hanging around. I think he's part of the Army WCAP program now. And speaking of Army WCAP, Lowy Lalang actually is in the WCAP and should be getting his citizenship any day now. So one question I have for you guys at rapid fire, Weldon, who's more likely to be on the U.S. 2020 Olympic team, Edward Cheserek or Lowy Lalang? Yes, we've lost Weldon. Jonathan, why don't you answer that question for me?
Yeah, I'm going to say Cheserek. And again, the big question here is, does Cheserek get his citizenship by then? Because I think if he gets it by 2020, I think he's on the team. I think he's that good. But Lalang, I mean, who knows? He really just hasn't done much since he graduated from Arizona, and that was back in 2014. And could he turn around his career under Scott Simmons? Well, it's possible. I mean, we've seen Paul Chelimo and Shadrach Kipchirchir. They were pretty good in college, but they were nowhere close to where they are right now. And training under Simmons out in Colorado Springs. So Lalang clearly has the talent. I mean, like you said, 333 and 13 flat. He was way better than either of them in college. Could he get back to that level? It's possible, but I just think Cheserek's in a much better place right now. And assuming he gets his citizenship, and that's really what this question boils down to, I think you got to pick him.
I said 13:01 for Will. It's actually 13 flat 0.95. So John, you and I are both right. It's actually closer to 13 flat. But
no, come on, Robert. That's we're not both right. I'm right. 13 flat.
In a road race, you have to round up, then you're second. So
did you run that on the roads, Robert, or on the track?
Anyways, but Lowy actually, we get criticism at times for focusing on American-born and Kenyan-born and stuff like that. And to the critics who don't like that, hey, go ahead and read the Atlantic Track Club press release or profile that we have in the week that was this week. We have a segment there on the 800-meter runner for the Atlantic Track Club. And Brandon Lassiter, who ran 145. He was great. His PR was 147 last week, and then he ran 145.8. If you look at his bio on the Atlantic Track Club, it notes that he's the first Georgia-born athlete to break 4. They don't use the word Georgia-born. They say like native Georgian or something. native-born Georgian, excuse me, is the terminology. So, in this day and age, sort of people moving all over the world, it's an international world, and you can now call for free, and people move all over, and sort of all that stuff. Sort of people, it's interesting to me, John. Like, some people get mad when we say Kenyan-born, and yet, I guess to me, it's not. I don't know. It's like there's a lot of reasons to do it. I mean, I'm a big fan of the book Sports Gene. I mean, genetics are a big part of running, whether you like that or not, like to admit it or not. But then people will say, well, that's racist. And I'm like, no, it's just, we're pointing out like a fact. They're of Kenyan descent or East African descent or whatever. We're not supposed to mention it yet. What's the big craze going through America? It's like 23andMe. You're supposed to send in a box of saliva and figure out, the DNA of your entire ancestry and figure out who you're related to and what famous relatives you have. So on the one hand, America is obsessed with that. On the other hand, you're not supposed to talk about it because being British born, John, do you have any comments on that, or are you gonna?
No, I agree with you. It's like, look at the composition of the distance squad on the United States 2016 Olympic team. All three guys in the 5K were born in Africa. Two of the three in the 10K were born in Africa. And two of the three, I'm trying to think, it's Steeplechase maybe. I'm looking 2017 World Championship team. The two of the three were in the Steeplechase. Kabene and Hillary Bohr were born in Africa. I mean, look, we can't boil. Who knows exactly what the percentages are, whether it's nature, nurture, genetics. I can't say exactly what goes into making them better, but I think you're a fool to say that someone born in, at altitude in Kenya is not at a bigger advantage becoming, a professional runner and an Olympian than someone born, in the middle of nowhere in Kansas. And I think I'm not trying to be racist when I'm pointing out this stuff, but we're pointing out to provide context. And I think, most people, I would like to think that most people could appreciate the nuances there. Some can't. Some get mad. Right. They're entitled to their opinion, but
in some ways, it's no different than noticing that, like, Neely Spence Gracie is the son of Steve Spence, or Matthew Centrowitz is the son of Matt Centrowitz. They have sort of, you would think, based on that their genetics are going to be sort of, ideally suited for distance running. It's kind of like, it's not a surprise when a Samoan makes the NFL as an offensive lineman, but it is a surprise if they make it as a wide receiver. I mean, there's just certain, we're talking on average statistics. Anyways, before I get myself into trouble, let's go, let's move on to another topic. But that 2 mile is great, and I'm really excited that it's on Saturday night. And I don't know if there's a rule. Friday night, excuse me, that all the Diamond League races have to be on actually Saturday in the 2 hour window, because it's a real shame to me that, oftentimes they run the men's 5,000. This year they're running the women's 5,000 in the middle of the day on Saturday, and it's just not good weather to run fast. It's normally warm, windy, and not good. But when the sun sets on the West Coast in the summer, generally the wind stops. So it should be really fantastic. Looking at the Let's Run poll, 47% of the Let's Run Nation are picking Cheserek to win. 24% are picking Chelimo. And I really think those are the smart picks. Barega's next at 12%. I'm really high on the two young Ethiopians, him and the other guy in the mile, but I just think that 2 miles is probably a little bit short distance for him. And then Mukhtar Edris is the third pick at 6%. But Weldon wanted to hype up Chelimo before he had technical difficulties. Is no longer on the call. It looks like. Will the American record of 8:07:07 go down? And 51% are saying yes. So that would be a big ask of Chelimo. Although I guess it should be pointed out, when that American record was run, it was run during the day in the normal Prefontaine meet. So definitely will be better conditions. Another guy we haven't mentioned, Eric Jenkins, is in that, right?
Yep, Jenkins, Ben True, Ryan Hill. I mean, you got a lot of Americans. Mo Ahmed, Hassan Mead.
I guess any of them are capable of the American record. But Lopez Lamong's in there. So it's certainly Paul Tanui. Wow. For he's global, he's medaled in the last 4 world championships at 10,000. So 2 miles is definitely short for him. Henrik Ingebrigtsen actually is another interesting name. He won the Peyton Jordan 5K. So that is incredible. 1, 2, 3. There's like 20 guys in the field, and they're all, I wonder who who's the least credentialed guy in that field?
I would say Ababia Simbasa from the WCAP program.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with him, he was 4th in USA's at the 10K last year. You're definitely right. I mean, Jacob Kalima, the World Under 20 XC champs in there.
Maybe Emmanuel Bohr. He only ran, I think he ran 7:44 this year indoors. He's not hugely credentialed, those two guys. But, and again, I actually don't know who's rabbiting. I mean, it's possible they're just in there as rabbits for Chelimo, but, you'd assume they have some pacers in there, willing to take it out pretty quick because, a field that big, it's going to bunch up unless it's quick.
And then the other big race tomorrow, Friday night, is the men's 800, 10:52 p.m. Now, I guess it'll be nice and still, probably not quite as warm as the 800 runners would like, but totally loaded. Nigel Amos, who was our world number 1 last year, but has had a lot of trouble as of late in the global championships. It didn't even medal last year as the favorite, but didn't even medal in the Commonwealth Games earlier this year as the favorite. Of course, is very famous for running second place behind David Rudisha's world record in London at the Olympics 6 years ago. He's now based in Eugene. Seems to have sort of refound his career really since training under Mark Rowland out in Eugene. But he missed a few weeks. Apparently, that's why he was injured at Commonwealth Games. That's the excuse we're getting, or the rationale we're getting for him not medaling. I mean, you can't imagine that he would medal at the Commonwealth Games because he was running well. I think he'd already run 143 this year, or 144 earlier in the year. So, he's probably the biggest. He's got the most global hardware in terms of outdoor championships. But you've got the World Indoor Champion Adam Schott, 143.3 PB. But yours and I favorite, John. We got the U.S. champion down from Brazier, of course, but a favorite has got to be, right, Emmanuel Courier. I mean, how good is he?
For sure. This guy, I mean, he's a monster talent. He's got really great speed, 44 second 400 speed, which is, for this guy, for an 800 runner is just outstanding. And he's run 143. He's the world leader last year at 143.10. He's only lost. Okay, so I'm not counting here one of his prelims in the Kenyan Championships when he advanced last year and made the final. If you don't count that one, he's lost 2 career 800s. One was in the Kenyan Championships in 2016. And that was his 3rd 800 race ever, according to Tilis Tapaja. And the other was when he failed to advance to the final last year at Worlds, and he was hurt at that meet. Apart from that, he's won everything. He ran 144.21 indoors this year, which is the fastest indoor time in 17 years. He won the Diamond League opener in Doha this year. And everything I see from this guy, just he's got star written all over him, and I'm hesitant to compare him to Rudisha, but at the same time, like, you look at his build, is he going to run 140 one day? Probably not. I mean, odds are against it, but I'm saying it's on the table, and I don't think you could say that for a lot of guys. But yeah, I expect him to win this race, but good field. I mean, especially if it slows down, Schott's going to be a factor. But if it goes quick, I'm excited to see how fast Courier can run.
Yeah, and he's got a real advantage because, of course, he's training still at UTEP with Michael Cerrone. And how good has Michael Cerrone been this year? I mean, Cerrone has run 143.25 this year. So you got a 143.10 for Courier, 143.25. They're both running group. Of course, they're coached by Olympic champion Paul Ehring. I mean, those guys are insane. I mean, the other day we had up on Let's Run, we got to watch Cerrone run a 1500. I'm like, in the history of the world, have we ever seen a 45-second guy run a 1500? I mean, I haven't. And he ran 350 in the 1500 at the Conference USA Champ. So that's like a sub 410 mile, 408 probably, 47, 408. What a treat to see that range. A guy can run 45 seconds in a quarter. And then Courier, he's never run a 1500, but he runs 44.53 in the quarter. I mean, that's David Rudisha. Admittedly, these guys don't run, the nice thing about seeing these guys in an NCAA system is they occasionally will run a 400, occasionally they'll run a 1500. There's no real reason to see a Rudisha when he's a pro run a 400. He's not really going to waste time and do that in the meet. I mean, Rudisha's the official PR is almost a full second slower than Courier's. It's 45.50. So we've really never seen a guy this fast in the 800. So Yeah, I mean, he's 22. I think, I mean, you can't predict, obviously, a world record, but for everyone that thinks records, will never be broken, no, they generally will be broken. Records are always broken. It's like Father Time was undefeated. So, it'll be interesting, though. His drug testing is better and better if they continue to be broken, but, 2-3 years, it wouldn't surprise me if he's approaching those types of Rudisha-like performances, because I think and it's really good to see Amos back, because he's the big talent. And actually, Amos is probably, what is he now? Probably 24 still, theoretically, officially 24 days, years, and 69. So that should be really amazing. Let's Run Nation. John, you want me to pick career for you for the win? I will. Let's Run Nation is big on career. 62% for career. 18% think Donovan Brazier can do it. 14% Nigel Amos. So, John, what's the latest on Brazier? Have we heard anything about how things are going for him? Have we seen him since the DQ at World Indoors? Looks like we're having some technical difficulties. Cannot hear you.
Oh, sorry, I was muted there, Robert. Yeah, I haven't talked to Brazier since World Indoors, but he's progressed pretty well as a pro. I think he's had some issues in the round still, but he had the DQ indoors last year. He didn't make it to the final at Worlds, but he won USA's last year. He's won round 1 to 43. He's been competitive in Diamond Leagues. I expect him to be ready to roll come Friday night.
So I didn't make you make a prediction I made you make a 2-mile prediction with Cheserek winning, but did you have Chelimo breaking the American record?
I said no. I mean, 8:07 that's pretty tough. You can't really. You got to go out pretty close to pace. Probably 4:00, 4:05 or whatever. If and you can maybe next split at the end. But if you're a little slow on one of those opening laps, and you're focused on just winning the race, it's hard. You got to stay on those rabbits. And we saw that race. If you look at the winning times in previous years. Okay, Mottram we're in 8:03 in 2007, but then you had guys like Kipchoge and Lagat, and they are not running faster than 8:07 in this race. So I think that if they all really commit to it, I think he has the ability to run 8. Chelimo has the ability to break 8:07, but I think race dynamics will probably play out in such a way that he doesn't.
So we talked about the men's 8. On Saturday, we're going to have the women's 800, and we've got really the big stars. I mean, we've got Caster Semenya, Margaret Wambui, and A.G. Wilson, and Francine Nsabo. So really the big three, and then A.G., sort of the three women that many think are sort of benefiting from the hyperandrogenism rules being lifted a few years ago, but they may be back. So it's really sort of could be the last time we see Caster Semenya in full form. If you want my prediction, I imagine one of these courts is going to throw this thing out. It seems to me, I definitely think that Semenya has an unfair advantage. I think it's unfortunate. She was obviously raised as a woman. She identifies as a woman. But just because you identify as a woman doesn't mean that you should be allowed to compete as a woman without hormone treatment in professional athletics. I mean, if Bruce Jenner wanted to compete in the women's Olympics in 1976 as Caitlin, people would have said no way. Now, admittedly, society's progressed a lot, but I say let people self-identify however they want, but you need to have rules if we're having a special category. I think we should have one category called open athletics and the one for sort of this other category that we call women's athletics, and there's got to be certain rules. And I certainly don't think that the proper way to do it in 2018 is who has a penis or not. So I think hormones is a good way to regulate it. And, it's just a sensitive thing. I really like to see what, John, that article you had about AG, though. AG enjoys racing, Caster. She enjoys the challenge. She's gotten pretty close to Semenya on several occasions recently. I mean, I guess the closest she's ever been is 0.6 of a second. That was in the 600 last year in Berlin.
No, she was closer than that at Worlds. She was only, in Monaco, she was only 0.34 behind her. That's really right. Other than that, she really hasn't been that close if you look at the results. But
it's interesting. And I have their career head-to-head. Career head-to-head, A.G. Wilson versus Caster Semenya. it's really, a tale of two cities. It's a tale of two rule books. When Semenya was on the hormone treatment or believed to be on the hormone treatment, it wasn't even close. A.G. Wilson dominated. Wilson beat Semenya the first 3 times they raced in their life, once in 2013 and twice in 2014. Wilson beat her by 1.5 seconds the first time they raced in Zurich, by 2.5 seconds the second time they raced in Rome. Those were 2013 and 2014. And then the third time they raced, Wilson beat her by 4.00 seconds, Bislett, in 2014. Then the rules get lifted in 2016, and I think at the end of 2015. And in 2016, Semenya was back and dominant once again. She's beaten Wilson 5 straight times. I mean, by 7 seconds. The Olympics, Wilson didn't make the final because she was injured. Been 0.34. It's been a little bit closer recently. I mean, the last 3 times they raced, it was 0.34 in Monaco last year, 1.5 seconds at Worlds, and then 0.6 in the 600 at Berlin. So, I think you had asked me offline, do I think AG can beat Castor? No. I mean, anything's possible. Obviously, if she has food poisoning, I mean, it's Castor needs to be on her game and run well to be AG Wilson, and that's a credit to AG. But I don't think that, barring hormone treatment, can you expect that to happen? But I will admit, while I don't think that Castor should be, I think that we need to have some sort of rules. I do enjoy watching Semenya run now. It used to bore me, but I really like how she's taking on the challenge of the 1500. I like how Wilson's pretty close to her, and she seems to be, the fact that there's 3 women that might be hyperandrogynous, it makes it a little bit more interesting than it was when Semenya was just dominating, or when a Pamela Gelimo, who many people might also think have been in the same boat in terms of hyperandrogenism, was absolutely dominant. So that's obviously, though, you've got some really good runners in that field.
I disagree with it being interesting. The women's 800 is the least interesting event because it's totally predictable. Semenya is going to win. Nian Saba is going to get second, and it's probably going to be Wilson third, maybe Wembui. But, it's interesting to see Semenya run the 400 or the 1500. I agree with you there. But the 800, I know who's going to win every race. It's why it's not interesting.
Am I back? Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Weldon Johnson's back from the dead,
welcome.
Folks.
Hey.
Not even Easter Sunday.
Anyway, I agree with Robert. I love the women's 800. I feel like it's sort of like a spectacle now and something to watch. And you say who she's going to win, but hasn't she won a race by less than 0.10? I mean, she could lose a race.
No, when did that happen?
I'll look it up. Give me a second. But I think also the sort of, I think there was a race last year, one of the early Diamond Leagues, maybe pre actually. But the other thing, I also kind of used to watch wondering if she had a special turbo button she could hit and drop a 152 or something. People wanted to see that, if she was sandbagging, that sort of stuff. I don't know. You just, for a while, I felt like you weren't sure what you were going to get. And it was almost, reminded me for a while kind of Alan Webb. This may be a crazy analogy, but you had to watch. You didn't know what was going to happen. And I guess the result's always the same, but I don't know.
Golden is correct. The pre-classic last year, Semenya won in 157.78 with Wembui second, 157.
Wow. 0.10 exactly. Thank you.
That's the closest. Everything. I mean, all right, Monaco, maybe she was pushed a little bit, but most of these races, I don't know. It's deceptively close because Semenya won't really turn on the jets, like you said, until the end of the race. When she does that, it's
but
usually
pre was surprising last year.
Yes.
And, so actually, I don't know. Also, that's probably another thing. I think you were at pre last year. I wasn't. So I'm watching on TV. I probably remember the race more than you because you're trying to interview 10 people at once. But I think this year she's looking even better. I think now for me, it's a spectacle because can she go undefeated at 8 and 15 and win Diamond Leagues in both? I mean, if the rules go into place, her career earnings come to an end from running, at least. I mean, maybe she can do exhibition races and she'll still have a lot of sponsorship. I mean, she's a bona fide star throughout the world and especially in South Africa. But this year, she might just be whatever. I don't care what these people say. I'm just going to run as fast as possible. Whereas in the past, I don't know if it was fair or not, but some people felt like she was holding back almost to not bring too much attention to herself. So I'm not sure really buy that, but it's interesting. And, I think the thing with AG is Castor's definitely made her raise her game. Without Castor, what is AG running right now? You could say she's been sort of deprived of some of these depending on your outlook, she's been deprived of some of these global medals or getting a better color medal. But, if she just running 158s, if Castor isn't setting the bar so high.
Agreed.
Go ahead,
We
Robert.
also have Charlene Lipsy in the field, which I was pleased. I didn't see her on the start list. I was mad at first. I'm like, what do you mean? She deserves to be in that field. John, will you at least admit in terms of Semenya that she isn't sandbagging, that she's run as fast as she can, 800? People think that she
I'm not convinced of that, Robert. I'm really not. I think the Rabbits last year in Monaco, we were told, okay, she's going to go for it. She's going to go out as hard as she can. And the Rabbits went out hard, but she wasn't right on them. And maybe that's because she was operating at a physical limit. That's possible. But I just, I've seen her run so many races this way. I think she can break the world record. And I don't think she's done everything she's capable of yet. I think we've seen a couple races a year where she really, usually it's been Monaco the last 2 years, where she's really tried to run fast from the front.
Why wouldn't she want to break the world record?
My theory was, at least before these rules, before the IAF came up with these new rules, is say she goes out there and runs 152. Well, then everyone who is saying she shouldn't be competing against these women is going to have this data point saying, look, she's run faster than all of the dopers throughout history, like Kratochvilova, as well as she's like, who else is the next closest person is Francini and Sauber at 156. If she's winning 400, if she's winning by 800s by 4 seconds, people are just going to be like, look, we have to change this. It needs to be fixed. Whereas if she's running 155 and 156, which at times we've seen women do in the past, there might be less of an impetus to get the rule changed. That was my working theory, at least.
Yeah. Well, I would love to see her I don't think that's true. I just think she's maxed out. I feel like people often think people can run faster and they just can't do it. It's actually interesting. Nain Sabo actually has a PR that's 155.47. She's only 0.31 off of Semenya's PR. So, people talk about invasion of privacy and stuff. And to me, that argument just doesn't hold water. I mean, if you want to be a pro athlete, Weldon used to have to pee in a cup and the man would have to literally see his penis. So all pro athletes have an invasion of privacy. And I don't know. I think if you're sort of, the experts tell me that the XY chromosome test isn't the good one, but if you don't have an ovary, and I kind of hope that she does, if she is capable of it, that she just, all right, you guys are going to ban me. I'm going to put the world record out of reach.
I kind of want to see that too.
That would be amazing. I'd like to flex those muscles, Castor. Flex them.
We don't really think the world record's legitimate now, do we? I'd rather have Castor break it. I mean, it's not. No one's thought that she might have been on drugs. I think most people just think it's sort of a natural advantage that she has. So, hey.
Yeah, I agree. I'd rather see her have the record than Kratochvilova.
Okay,
let's move on. It's not an easy situation that she's been in. She's under a lot of scrutiny, and I think she handles it very well. It's crazy. It's been since almost 10 years now. 2009, she first burst on the scene.
Let's move on. Men's steeplechase tomorrow, or Saturday, excuse me. John, do we have all the medalists? Are we missing anyone? I see Jager. I see Concessos Caputo. Who got the silver last year?
Soufiane El Bakkali, Morocco, and he's running as well. Yeah, it's going to be a great one. These guys really are the big three of the event. They split the 5 Diamond League meets last year. Jager won 1, El Bakkali won 2, Caputo won 2, and then obviously he also won Worlds. I'm writing the preview for this event, and I don't think an 8-minute barrier. That's obviously all 3 of them have that in mind. None of them have done it this year. None of them have done it ever. El Bakkali's run 8:04. Jager and Caputo have both come super close. Jager ran 8 flat 0.45 when he fell in Paris, and Caputo's come even closer. He ran 8 flat 0.12. So that's going to be the goal this season, but right now I don't know if that's going to be possible. I was talking to Caputo's agent, Michel Boting, last week, and he was telling me, Caputo, he definitely wants to run fast, but he's not sure if it's going to happen right now because it's still kind of early in the season. They might have to wait until later in the year. And I did a breakdown. If you look at all of the sub 8-minute sub 8 minute steeples in history. 4 have come in the month of May, 1 in the month of June, but the majority have come after that. It's been 12 in July, 13 in August, and 6 in September. So my guess is one of these guys, maybe all of them, will go under 8 minutes at some point this summer, but I don't think it's going to happen on Saturday afternoon at Pre. What I do think is going to be a great race. I'm excited to see what happens, and I'm excited to see the celebration because Kipruto is known for celebrating from a long way out and doing some wild stuff. And, if Jager wins on home soil, he's going to be pretty pumped about that. So very excited for this race.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. This will, of course, be Jager's first steeple of the year. And I was looking up, John, what he's opened, how fast has he opened up before in the steeple? And he ran 8:08 in 2013. He ran 8:06 in 2014. He ran 8:05 in 2015. The difference was in all of those years, well, first of all, Prefontaine is normally a little bit later. Normally it's like June, right? End of May.
No, normally it's this weekend. It's Memorial Day weekend usually.
Well, I was looking at the dates. It's normally 5 or 6 days later. Anyways, not a big deal. But Jager normally has run a little bit faster in some other events. I mean, this year he ran 13:24 on April 19th. I think he's got a 13:02 PB, right?
Yeah.
Whereas so he's run 13:24 in 2013 when he opened up at 8:08 in the steeple. He'd already run a 13:14 at Stanford. The next year he'd already run 13:08. And he didn't open up at Pre. He opened up at Bislett on June 11th, so he had an extra 3 weeks of training. He also had run a 3:53 Pre, so he ran 13:08 and 3:53 before running that 8:06. And then his best opener was in 2015. He had run a 3:39 1500, which is not amazing. So it's hard to read too much into that. But 13:24. I mean, I guess he did win that race, right? It would be surprising to me if he ran, super fast. I would think more like 8:10 would be in the cards. I was looking up last year. Jager didn't run Pre. Do we know? Does anyone remember why?
It wasn't the men's steeple. I mean, I guess he could have run the 5,000, but there was no steeple at Pre last year.
So
and Consensus Kipruto ran that 5K in Shanghai and was terrible.
He dropped
no
out.
No one's doubting that he's gonna. Yeah, no one's gonna doubt that he's, in sub 8:10 shape. And he won Commonwealth Games in 8:10 as well, so I guess he's had a lot more racing than Jager. But it's got to be they always are sub 8:05 races. I feel when you have this many good guys in it.
Give us your prediction then, Weldon. Winner and time, please.
It'd be great if Jager could win it, but I got to go with Consensus Kipruto, 8:03.48.
Jonathan?
Kipruto 8:05. I'm not going to give the tenths. Sorry.
About to say when I nail the tenths.
I mean, it's interesting. Kipruto was terrible in Shanghai, but the fact that he ran a 5,000 means to me like he must have thought like, "Hey, I'm capable of something." He did run 8:10 flat. Yeah, I think 8:05, 8:03 is a good call there. I think Kipruto should be the one to win it. Be nice to see Jager win it, but nothing. I don't know why the script would be flipped from past results. So the other distance events before we get to the Bowerman Mile, we've got the women's 1500. The big name there, I guess, would be Laura Muir, right? 3:55 PB.
And Jenny Simpson.
Yeah, I was just looking in terms of PRs. Excuse me, Jenny. Apologize. 3:57.22. So I've noticed that. So they're actually, there's 4 women with PRs under 4 minutes. So those two, and then Winnie Chibad's run 3:59.16 in the past, 4:06 this year. And Daywit Siam's run 3:58.09 and was the winner in the Diaz meet. So I guess this would be Muir's outdoor opener. Simpson's already run twice. John, you're probably working in the middle of the preview. Who do you give the edge to in this field?
Yeah, I give it to Simpson. She ran 8:30 in Doha, which is very good, especially for a 1,500 meter runner. And you look at the rest of the field, like you said, Robert. The women's 1,500 has actually been very strong in recent years, but you don't have any Faith Kipyegon. She's taking the year off to have a baby. Gonzebe Dababa is running the 5K here. Sifan Hassan isn't running. Casta Semenya is in the 800. It's not that deep in this race. And it's basically, I think it comes down to Simpson or Muir. And Muir recently, actually, she just posted on Twitter like a couple minutes ago. She passed her vet exams, so she's going to be a vet. Congratulations to her. But that was sort of the focus that she's had the last few weeks. And then she was out in California earlier this week. It looked like she was riding some roller coasters earlier this week, sort of post vet school reward. I don't know if that'll have any effect, the final exams. I know she said she was very busy with it, but she trained really well through vet school, got 2 medals at World Indoors. So I think she'll still give Jenny a good race. But yeah, I'm going to go. I say I'll pick Jenny for the win. You know, the 8:30 in Doha, very good time. And she's a good racer. She has, apart from last year, she has a good history at pre. You know, she ran 3:59 here way back in college in 2009. So yeah, I think, and one woman I will say to watch out for, Shelby Houlihan, because, you know, she ran 4:03 here in 2016, but she has run some significantly better results across pretty much every other distance since then. You know, she won USA's in the 5K last year. She was 4th at World Indoors in the 1500. She won the 1500 and 3K USA Indoors this year. I think she could revise that PR and maybe even challenge 4 minutes. So Jenny, better watch out for Shelby Houlihan.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, yeah, I think Houlihan could challenge, but the fact that Simpson seems to be wanting to go after times this year is nice. In 2018 with no Worlds, I think she's the woman to be. But it's just,
yeah, I agree with John. It's a big race for Shelby Houlihan. Like, you know, she's shown some promise, but if you're a 4:03/15 flat girl, like internationally, that's not really doing anything. But if she can get down to 4 flat, then you can start being a factor in the 1500 in the world stage. I feel like it's a kind of Kate Grace, she has a great story, fellow Yaley, made the Olympic final at 800, but now she's got a 4:03 1500 meter runner, and she may be the, third fastest 1500 meter person in her group right now. So, like, if you want to go to the next level, she's going to start needing results being a part of Bowerman. So there's kind of some interesting subplots. And then, Brenda still hasn't broken 4. And I don't think, as the years go by, her chances increase of breaking 4. So 2 other subplots besides, whether essentially or whether Shelby can challenge her.
Well, Brenda might have a chance because she's focusing on the 1500 now. In the past, I mean, she'd been a good 8:15 runner, but she'd always gone for the 8 at the championships, apart from the Olympics in 2016 when she's pretty much forced to do the 1500 as a backup option. But, this year she's actually going after the 1500 is where she's focusing her training around. And I don't know. She might have 1 or 2 more years left to chase that 4 flat barrier, but I guess we'll see starting at pre.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, John. To me, as a former coach, it's like you have an event that you're best at, and she's a 157.91 800 meter runner. I think that's her best event. To me, focusing on the 1500 means I know I can't cut it anymore at the 800. I think if I try for the 1500, maybe I can still be relevant. I don't know. I mean, I know people do move up as they get older, but I don't think it's because they're, I think her best event was the 800. I think there's a lot of people that think, oh, I can do the 1500 meter training. I should be better at the event, but they're just not. So, that's sort of thing. Before we get a couple more distance events, women's 5,000, Gonzebe Dibaba, obviously the favorite, 14:15 PB. I mean, Helen O'Berry's in there. She's run 14:18, but I don't know. To me, come on, Nike, you've got the money. I guess they're not going to get Omazayana. She's an Adidas athlete to show up in Eugene and try to break the world record. But at some point in 2018, if there is not a meet on the schedule where both Dibaba and O'Berry, I mean, Seb Coe, if you want to be innovative, get them in a world record race somewhere under the lights at night. It's not that hard. They're both incredible. I know they want to avoid each other. Put a bonus, a $50,000 bonus or a $100,000 bonus or something. I think we should have Let's Run events. We raise like $100,000 a year. That would be one of my ideas for the year. Okay, $100,000 if one of you breaks the world record. What, Weldon? Did you have a heart attack?
No, you said Dibaba and O'Berry. They're in this race. You mean Ayana as well, right? I mean,
yeah, I want to see Ayana.
We got a 14:15 and a 14:18 in this field. So, yeah, Ayana may be more likely to break it, but I feel like it's, it's within the range of what Dibaba and O'Berry can do.
Not the way Helen O'Berry is running this year. O'Berry was not good at the Diamond League in Doha. She was 14th in 8:53. You know what 8:53 is? That's 14:49 5K pace. She didn't look great indoors either. I think O'Berry sort of needs to prove she's ready to run that fast. I think Dibaba wins this one in a rout. But I would like to see Ayana versus Dibaba for the world record at some point.
Okay, I'll be quiet. I've got how bad she was
We
this
do
year.
have Alice Aprod in
I don't know if it
there.
was that bad. Yeah, she had a couple bad races, but yeah, you're not turning it around that quick.
Alice
Some other
Aprod
runners
was
really,
pretty good. I mean, she
have
was
a bad one like that. They could skip pre.
World Cross silver medalist, but 14:39 PB. So she's probably. I mean, no one's going to challenge Tababa if she's on her game. And then, we of course, are going to end the meet with the Bowerman Mile. Do you guys know what is significant about? Actually, it'll happen not in the Bowerman Mile. It'll happen on the International Mile. Friday night, first before the Bowerman Mile, we have the International Mile with Drew Hunter, the 17-year-old. No, we have Drew Hunter. We have the high schooler Brody Hasty trying to break 4. I'm sorry, we don't have a 17-year-old Ingebrigtsen. He's in the Bowerman Mile. What is significant? What will happen, folks, in the International Mile? Do you guys know?
I do know because I
What?
emailed Alan Webb for a story I'm working on, and he was asking if I was going to be at pre, and I told him I would be. He's like, okay, I'm handing out awards for the International Mile, and he said, did you know that whoever wins the race almost certainly will be the 400th? It will be the 400th sub 4 mile run at the pre classic.
Damn it, Alan Webb! I thought I had this stat. No one else had it. There's a list, actually, if you go to Track and Field News, compiled by Scott Davis. But, yeah, so that'll happen on the International Mile. John, International Mile.
No, because we're at 399 right now. I was about to say how many people will break it in this race, but the first guy across will be the 400.
Actually, the International Mile, take that back. The International Mile is on Saturday. It's not Friday. So it actually bothers me. Do the fans really want to watch 2 miles in the same day? One's like the JV mile, even though it's really, really good JV. And then one's the Bowerman Mile. Like, why don't they put the International Mile the day before?
I don't know. It's a good question, though. Rob, you won't actually get to watch that race because it's before the TV broadcast. So only I will get to see that in Eugene.
John, you can put it up on Periscope.
I think I'd get my credential revoked if I tried to stream something.
Wait, won't it be on NBC Gold or something?
No, the NBC Gold, the track events broadcast doesn't start till 4 Eastern, and this race is at 3:48.
Well, since it's not going to be on TV, I want you to ask for permission to put it on your phone.
Come on, people. We can get this done.
Anyways,
they can start 15 minutes early.
Who do we have in the International Mile? I mean, let's see here. We've got the full field here. Okay. We've got James Maggott, 349 miler. Pretty good. Kyle Merber has actually got the next best PR, 352.
Merber is scratched from the race.
Who has?
Moba has scratched from the race.
Why? Didn't he run decently?
He ran pretty well. He was running down Centro at Oxy, but he said he has a hip issue, which isn't 100% serious, but he didn't want to aggravate it, so he's not running.
Forward out, Isaac Yorks, 353. Forward out, Cam of Morocco, 354. Luke Matthews, Australia, 354. Then Americans, Henry Wynn, Riley Masters, Drew Hunter, fresh off his 350. Did he run 356.79? Is that what he ran in Boston last week?
Yes.
Blake Haney and then Brody Hasty at 4.05. So after you saw Drew run, John, he won the Adidas Boost Games last week and beat some, Nick Willis and Chris O'Hare and a 333 Kenyan, 332 Kenyan. But everyone's going gaga, and I like to hype up. I'm famous for hyping up Ritzenheim back in the day. I said he'd be the first white guy under 27. I'm hyping up for Ben Cerrone when he went to Colorado. So I like to hype up always the next great American distance star in high school. But and I'm a big Drew Hunter fan, but I don't know. People after he won that race were saying, I want to watch him race Josh Kerr. And I was like, are you guys crazy? Josh Kerr would wipe the floor with Drew Hunter. John, how impressive was the win? I mean, I looked at the splits. The weather was good, right? I mean, the splits were not overly impressive in my opinion.
It was a little rainy. It wasn't, it was cool and rainy. It wasn't fantastic, but, I wouldn't say it was terrible. There were some decent times in other events. I don't know. I mean, he closed in 55 in a 3:56 race, which is, it's good. It's not like stop the presses, and he went toe-to-toe with Chris O'Hare, who was a world championship finalist, who won Millrose this year, who's a very good miler, and he held him off. He beat him down the home stretch. So that was really impressive to me. And does it mean that he's going to win this international mile? I don't know. I think he's if you look at the people based on current form, he's probably the favorite. But like Colby Alexander's run 3:56 this year. He's already run faster than Drew. Like Luke Matthews of Australia, he was the bronze medalist at the Commonwealth Games, the 800. That guy can kick. Like this is a good, there are going to be other guys who are in shape right now to challenge Drew. And, if he wins here, it's another notch in his belt. That's good. But I don't think, the kid's still 20 years old. He's got some development ahead of him. And I think this is probably better for him to get the experience running in this race and running to win, as opposed to going into the Bowerman Mile where he would definitely get his doors blown off by Manangoy, Chariot, those guys.
Yeah, Matthews is much better at 800 than 1500. 145. I think it was 12th in the Commonwealth Games, 1500 final. He does have a 335 PB. I don't know. I mean, in high school, we were told the 100 is not a mile.
John called Drew a kid.
So, yeah,
John called Drew a kid, which I thought was interesting because that's how Drew referred to himself.
Okay.
But also, I spent way too much time trying to get audio to work on this thing, so I'm going to play a Drew Hunter clip. John, it's you talking to him after the Adidas games. It's about 20 seconds long.
Once you have that mentality, you start to slowly believe. When you wake up every day and say, I'm a winner, I'm going to, train to be a winner, train to win this race, like good things happen. You start to transform into a better runner.
Did you have that mentality last year?
I didn't, no. Because I was very timid last year. And, rightfully so. I think most kids in my position would have been too. But now I'm just as good as these guys. I earned this contract. I earned the right to be out here. And so now, now I just, treat it like, I belong. And that's been a big.
So there you have it, Drew Hunter. But he calls himself a kid, which I thought was interesting. But I think he definitely belongs.
I love the clip. Good work, John. And don't misunderstand me, folks. I love Drew. I think it's he's in a great situation. He's got a great coach in Timon. He's got a training group there in Boulder. He's training at altitude. He's doing everything right. They're entering in the appropriate races. He's motivated. There's a plan. It seems like it's not, I don't know. Alan Webb ran 3:53 as a high school senior and then thought he was going to run 3:46 the next year. Now, it's that mindset that probably gave Webb the American record in the mile too, the craziness of whatever, but it wasn't good for long-term development. So Hunter's doing a lot of things right, but in high school we were told he's not a miler. So if he's not a miler, I know he just did win the Adidas Boost games. And this is a rabbit race, but if this was a championship race with these guys, I wouldn't pick him to win it because, I don't know, we just saw just tonight, he's one of the fastest collegians ever at 1500. He got smoked in the ACC meet and got like 5th or 4th because he can't, turn the gears like some of these guys. So Hunter may win it, and that'd be great. I think it'd be nice to see him approach Alan Webb's high school time. I certainly think this race would be won in under 3:55. Historically, it is. So, that would be fantastic. But
let's talk about the main event. Let's go to the Bowerman Mile here.
You've seen Hunter. Give me the time that he runs.
Oh, Drew? I'll say 3:55.
Very good. Does he win the race?
Yeah, I think he wins.
Okay. And turning to the last but not of least, the non-Diamond League, but one of the biggest events of the weekend, the Bowerman Mile, the 400th. Well, we'll see the 400th mile actually in the earlier race. But I was thinking about this. This list on Track and Field News is amazing. I mean, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I'm trying to figure out 17, 18. Everyone went gaga over Cheserek. And don't get me wrong, 350 in the mile indoors is great, but there's been 23 people that have broken 350 in the mile in this Bowerman Mile. That's how good this is. And I know it's outdoors, but it's often windy. It's early in the season. So that's, this field is loaded. John, why don't you tell us who's in the field? The big names. I'll tell you, though, who's not in it. And it's the most decorated Bowerman miler in history, the 4-time champion, Asbel Kiprop. Of course, has tested positive for EBO. He will be out. I guess Nike's not bringing him in to rabbit the race. They ought to make him rabbit the race for free or something. People would probably boo him. But
yeah, I'm sure that would go over really well. Nike has Robert, you would totally bash them if they did that, bringing in a doper to rabbit a race.
They bring him into the VIP tent.
John, don't jump to conclusions.
If Kiprop's going to be in the VIP tent having wine and cocktails with Capriati, shouldn't he at least make him work?
He's not going to be in the VIP tent, though.
Only because we exposed that, folks. If you're not familiar with what we're talking about, Google Mark Block, Eugene, let's run by com. So, John, take us through the field briefly.
Yeah, so it's a good one for sure. We got I won't read off every name, but I'll hit some of the highlights. We got Matthew Centrowitz. You might have heard of him. He's an Olympic champion from the United States. Timothy Chariot. He won in Shanghai. He's the silver medalist from Worlds last year. Craig Engels, Centro's teammate from the Nike Oregon Project. He won the 800 at Oxy. Jakob Ingebrigtsen, the 17-year-old wunderkind from Norway, who beat Centro Angelimo at the Peyton Jordan meet in the 1500. He was the youngest last year, the youngest ever sub-4 miler. He did that at the pre-classic. Now he gets to run with the big boys, so that should be fun. Silas Kiplagat, 347 miler, pretty proven commodity on the Diamond League stage, though a little bit on the backside of his career at the moment. Elijah Manengoy, he's the world and Commonwealth champion at 1500. I would think he's got the title of world's greatest miler at the moment. Clayton Murphy ran 351 here last year at pre, and might be rounding into form with the Oregon Project. We'll see. He ran 145 in his last 800. Ayanli Suleiman, who has the meet record at 347 from 2014, and Samuel Tefera, who has no mile PB listed, but I'm sure he can run a good one given that he is the world indoor champion from Ethiopia. Which names there stand out to you guys? Who are you most excited to see?
Well, I spent the afternoon listening to a Centrowitz podcast, so I'm excited to see Centrowitz. I mean, Manengoy. I mean, basically, who's missing from this race in terms of?
Yeah, I was thinking, Kiprop was the guy I immediately thought of, but obviously, he's not.
I mean, I am really pumped by Samuel Tefera. I want Ethiopia to have a star. I'm really high on him. You've got Manengoy. I mean, Ingebrigtsen, like that to me is worth the price of admission. I want to see that on web record go down. So 353, that's the race within the race. I mean, I think that's very doable for him and probably likely to happen, to be honest. So I want to see the 353 go down, and then I'm interested to see who wins this race. I think Manengoy has to be the favorite, right? He won Commonwealth Gold, right?
Yep.
But Tefera is really good. Who won World Indoors?
Tefera won.
So, folks, we have our American privileges on this race. The people with the slowest PRs by far: Craig Engels 357, Ben Blankenship 353. Oh, Ingebrigtsen though 356. Now that's high school privilege. I mean, there's only two guys in the field that have a PR over 355, right? 1, 2, over 353. So it's going to be pretty amazing. Now, looking at this list, there's never been an American to break 350 at pre. The best by an American actually is Centrowitz. He ran 350.53 here in 2014. Guess what place that got him? No one even paid attention to that.
Oh, that was a really deep year. I would guess that got him 8th place.
Wow, John is so good, folks. That's why we pay him the big bucks. Exactly 8th place. Amazing, John. Maybe John's got the same printout that I do.
No, but, I didn't pull it up. But I was looking through the results of that meet earlier today because 26 guys broke 4 minutes in the mile at that meet. Like last place in that race, I think the guy who ran like 11th still ran like 353. Last place was like 355 or something. It's just, that was a ridiculous race.
So to me, I really want to see how Centrowitz is. They have the 10 fastest Americans in the bottom mile. Centrowitz leads the way at 350. Ben Blankenship is 10th, 353.04. So there's only been 3 Americans to break 351 in this race. Centrowitz, Legat, and Webb. So, I don't know. I think Centrowitz is? I'm optimistic for his season. I think that people were worried about those 800s. I think he's like, look, I didn't race a lot. I'm not young anymore. It takes me a while to get my speed back. I think he ran 337 in Australia several months ago. He just did well in Oxy. I think he's going to have a good season. Anyways, so I'm interested to see what he does. I don't think he's going to be ready to win this race now, and I don't think he's ready to break 350. I hope I'm wrong on that, but it'll be interesting to see, can Engels and Murphy do well? I mean, Murphy's been struggling. Engels said he didn't do well at altitude, but Engels looked fine in the 800 last week. So, there's just a lot of storylines there. How does the Ethiopian look? So a lot to look at. But what I was saying was, I don't know if Weldon can cue up the audio if it's working, because I think it was an iPhone and I see it was computer. So I don't know if Weldon can get the clip I sent him. I spent the afternoon for some reason listening to a 2016 podcast, the Pacers podcast. I highly recommend it. I've been a guest on the show. Pacers running store in the Northern Virginia, D.C. area, done by Julie Coley's husband, is the host. And anyways, Matt Centrowitz Sr. was the host in 2016. You can see it. It was right before the Olympics. And it was a really interesting podcast because I was watching to it because I was trying to think of questions I want you, John, to ask people when you're in Eugene at the press conference on Friday and then at the meet on Saturday. And obviously, I haven't really seen Centrowitz talk about his take on Kiprop testing positive. What does he think about it? Blah, 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 blah. But I had heard that his dad had talked a lot about drugs in this podcast because I was on the podcast, like the next person on the podcast in like September of 2016, but I never went back and listened to it. I finally did today. Almost 2 years to go back and listen to it. And it was fascinating. They started talking about drugs, and he was saying that Centro had a confidence in himself and put a lot of, he sort of like, the way his contract was structured, he had a lot of money riding on the fact that he would medal in the 2016 Olympics, which didn't happen. The 2012 Olympics, excuse me. And then his dad's like, yeah, and his dad basically was like, there's probably two dopers ahead of him, implying like McLuffy definitely a doper, they thought, and then they were debating whether Iguodala was a doper, but it was pretty strong language. And then they kind of got sidetracked by the Jama. It was right after the Jama Aden raid. There was no talk of Kiprop, but at one point, this is also when the Russian thing was going on. They're like, well, what about the African runners? Do you think they could possibly be on drugs? And Centro Senior was like, yes, of course. So, and then it's even more interesting. The host never asked them about, hey, what about your son being part of the Nike Oregon project? And there's been accusations about them. That was never asked, but it was very interesting because they asked Centro Senior, like, how confident are you in that he's going to medal? This is before the 2016 Olympics. He's like, look, I'm really confident. He was fourth in 2012. He's a much better runner now, much better. He's working.
Is that the clip you sent me, Robert? I think I got some 49-second clip you sent me.
Yeah, this is it. When they ask him, they asked Centrowitz, I think you'll hear them ask him, hey, what do you think about Matthew Jr.'s chances of medaling at the Olympics in 2016?
In the world's outdoors. So the one thing that we kind of talked about a little bit here was the fourth place at the Olympics. But the one thing left is medaling at the Olympics.
Correct.
So as his dad and someone who knows the sport as good or better than anybody out there, what do you think the chances are as we get to here to Rio next month?
One hand, I think if he only missed by 1/100th of a second, I like this as much stronger. He whipped the shit out of that guy that was there 4 years ago. He's improved dramatically.
Yep.
And so I'm optimistic there. And the other part is you don't know, unfortunately, with our bad subject called drugs, you don't know who's going to appear that we've never seen before. That's what's the unknown.
Now, there's no.
So there you have it.
That was it.
People get on us for sort of harping on drugs, and you have the father of an Olympic champion weeks before the Olympic Games start, and they're like, "Hey, we're in great shape," but somebody could show up. I mean, remember the women that won the Olympics? Where were they from? John, Greece, Turkey, somewhere crazy.
Turkey.
Yeah. Now they normally show up like a week or two, so you had an idea they're coming because. Centro Senior probably could have been safe because generally they're going to have to run fast enough to get into the Olympics. So they have to pop a fast time, but you never know if someone's going to be like McLuffy all of a sudden. So
it is interesting. Centro only missed the medal in 2012 by 400ths. His dad said 100th, but I didn't realize it was that close because everybody was so focused and excited about Leo getting silver.
Yep. People forgot about it. But if you listen to the podcast again, you can just type in, Pacers Running Stores, Washington, D.C. If you just type in Pacers Podcast, Matthew Centrowitz, you'll see it. They have really high quality because you got to go in the studio to do it. So type in Pacers Podcast Centrowitz, and you'll go to runpacers.com/Pacers. But at one point during his segment, he said something like, he thought Centrowitz his son was in incredible shape. And he's like, I think ultimately he will get the American record at either the 1500 or the mile. So that's sort of, to me, the big question mark I would like to see later for the year. That's one of the things I most want to see. Centro doesn't need to be in amazing shape on May 26 or whatever the Saturday is going to be. He just needs to be in amazing shape, in basically 3 months. And I think he's in a good enough shape now that he can take a crack at potentially, the American record in the 1500 or the mile. So that would be really exciting. That's one of the things I'm most looking forward to, and it was sort of interesting to hear his dad, talk about that. And that was 2 years ago. So, some interesting stuff there for sure. All right, guys, we've been on this show for an hour and a half almost. A few technical problems, but anything else we need to hit before we sign off?
I mean, we could talk about this meet for another hour. It's so good, but I think we've hit all the important distance stuff for sure.
Of meat, at one point during the podcast, they're talking about the drugs, and basically it sounds like they were very suspicious of McCluskey and then maybe Ecuador. He's like, yeah, Tom Jordan, who's the Prefontaine meat director. Centro's he kind of casually says this, but they kind of interrupt. But it sounds like he says Tom Jordan was so confident that one of these guys would be DQ'd for doping that they were already planning the medal ceremony for Centrowitz at the pre-classic.
Wow.
Crazy that, to hear this. And, it's weird. I think that if you're an NLP critic, to hear his dad, I mean, I guess you could say it's all a smokescreen, but to hear his dad's, worried about other dopers clean themselves. So anyways, it was classic Centrowitz. If you know him at all, he's quite a character. So highly recommend the podcast, and I think they have it almost every week, so you can download it at runpacers.com. But yeah, this meet could go on forever. John will be there on site, folks, giving you the exclusive coverage that you have come to know and love. We'll be trying to help him remotely. Weldon, do you have any comments, any predictions, any final takes?
I don't know. I'm just staring at the Bowerman mile list and kind of remarking how Jacob Ingebrigtsen, his PR is 3:56. He's 9 seconds slower than some of these guys, and he's sort of the sensation so far of the outdoor campaign for the 1500, at least sort of North American, getting a lot of attention. I mean, he's not North American, but the race was here. So it's just a tremendous meet, like everything's stacked.
It's not fair to me to actually get on. I got on Drew Hunter for only closing in he's 5 or something. If you compare that to like NC Indoors, which was a 357 race, the final 400 was 54. There was a 350 race at Millrose one time when Centrowitz ran a 54 and a 350 mile. But Ingebrigtsen, as good as he was, and he beat some really big names at Stanford, he only ran 339, so that's pretty equivalent to about 356. Does anyone remember what the final lap in that race was? How could it be that slow?
I don't remember. I do remember he did win convincingly, though. He definitely, when he moved, he got a good gap on everyone else.
Who did he beat, John? Remind us.
Centro and Chalimo were two of the guys he beat.
Yeah, which is much bigger than beating Willis and O'Hare, no offense. So
final lap 55.29.
So, and what was Hunter's last lap, John?
Hunter was 55 mid too. I think Hunter versus Ingebrigtsen would be a great matchup right now. But Ingebrigtsen, if he wins, all right, he's not. Yeah, there's no way he's winning this race. Like if he wins this race, we've got a legitimate, like absolute
wins
phenom.
The race. He's in the main race, John.
I know. That's what I'm saying. It's not going to happen.
We might have a Kiprup situation, John, if he wins this race.
I guess I said he's definitely beat 353. 353 is a little high. I forgot. He ran last year. Remember, he ran the big mile at home, and he ran Bislett. He won the Dream Mile last year?
No, they made the Dream Mile an under 20 race.
Oh, right.
For him.
6.29.
One of my thoughts about Pre is like he'd have terrible tactics and still win. Sometimes he wouldn't win, but like it was a thing of beauty to watch in court. But I'm not personally buying his excuse, but I believed it. I just thought that was crazy. But I don't know. There'll be a sort of, because none of these guys, that guy could just run the mile, man. Like his top end was just so unbelievable. And these other guys can't do it, but it's sort of, so there'll be a little bit of sadness, I think.
Weldon's been cutting out a little bit. Yeah, I agree with you. Kiprop was fun to watch, but if it's all sure, then hey, it's like Mary Decker Slaney. If you test positive in my mind, I don't give a shit what you did. Whole career, in my opinion, is an asterisk next to it. So I said earlier that Ingebrigtsen, I expect him to beat Webb's 353, but I don't know now. I'm debating it. I mean, because he beat Chalima and Centrowitz, so I was like, okay, yeah, he'll do it, but he's only run 356. Definitely think he'll beat 355. I think 353 is a good goal. Over under, I would put it there. I mean, he ran 3:58 in the mile last year in the international mile, so it's interesting. But he's got great range. I mean, this guy last year ran everything from the steeple, 13:35 in the 5,000 at age 16 to 8:40, 8:34 in the steeple. It's crazy. So very exciting. Anyways, we've talked long enough, an hour and a half. For Jonathan Galt, for Weldon Johnson, this is Robert Johnson signing off. Thank you for joining us. Have fun. Enjoy Paris. Talk about it on the message boards. Spread the words. Get your friends to watch this meet. It's the only Diamond League US meet, so we need good TV ratings. All right. Talk to you later.